Silverstein went to prison back in '78 for armed robbery, killing a prison guard and 2 inmates at a federal pen in Indiana.
Thomas Silverstein is one of the most feared men in the United States prison system. His violent history, including the murder of a prison guard in 1983, earned him a permanent spot in solitary confinement, isolated from human contact for the rest of his life. With a record believed to surpass any other federal inmate,
it's believed he spent more time in solitary confinement than any other federal inmate. He was in solitary at various prisons since 1983.
Silverstein spent decades in isolation, a testament to his notorious reputation. But the ugly truth is that there are others brutal like him out there or in prison. So who are these people who have committed more crimes than they can ever be reprimanded for? Join us as we reveal the most feared man in U.S. prison. Number 8. Nico Jenkins. Nico Jenkins's life has been a trajectory of violence and chaos, earning him the ominous title of most dangerous inmate in the world. His criminal career began at just 7 years old, when he brought a loaded handgun to elementary school. This disturbing behavior continued throughout his childhood, leading to his involvement with gangs and eventual imprisonment at 15 for armed carjackings. While behind bars, Jenkins' violent tendencies only intensified, attacking a prison guard and inciting a prison riot. Astonishingly, these additional charges did not add to his sentence, and he was released in 2013. This decision would prove devastating for multiple families, as Jenkins embarked on a killing spree just 11 days later. With the help of his sister and cousin, Jenkins lured and murdered 2 innocent men, Jorge Cajiga Ruiz and Juan Uribe Pena. 8 days later, he shot and killed a former prison inmate just a day after they had taken a friendly photo together. Jenkins' rampage continued, claiming the life of Andrea L. Kruger, a mother of 3, with the assistance of his uncle. Jenkins's trial was a long and tumultuous one, but on May 2017, he was sentenced to death and received a 450-year prison sentence. Today, he remains on death row, a testament to the destructive power of unchecked violence and the importance of holding perpetrators accountable for their heinous crimes. Number 7. Robert Hansen. In the vast and rugged state of Alaska, a sinister figure lurked in the shadows, preying on unsuspecting victims. Robert Hansen, known as the Butcher Baker, led a double life, masquerading as a mild-mannered baker while secretly terrorizing the state as a serial killer. His reign of terror would earn him the dubious distinction of being Alaska's most notorious murderer. Hansen's troubled past hinted at the horrors to come. Born in Iowa in 1939, he endured a difficult childhood, struggling with stuttering and acne. His father, a demanding Danish immigrant baker, instilled in him a passion for hunting and tracking, skills Hansen would later use to stalk and kill his victims. After a stint in the Army Reserve and a brief career as a police academy instructor, Hansen moved to Alaska, where he opened a bakery and started a family. But beneath his unassuming exterior, Hansen harbored dark secrets. His criminal record dated back to his 20s, with arrests for arson, theft, and sexual assault. Hansen's first confessed murder victim was a woman he believed to be a sex worker, whom he lured, sexually assaulted, and killed in the 1970s, targeting vulnerable women, often sex workers, and hunting them down in the wilderness. Over the next decade, Hansen's killing spree claimed the lives of 17 women, with authorities initially unaware of the sinister forces at play. Hansen's skills as a pilot and hunter allowed him to evade detection, leaving behind a trail of bodies in Alaska's unforgiving terrain. The breakthrough in the case came in 1983, when a teenage sex worker, Cindy Paulson, escaped from Hansen's clutches and led authorities to his doorstep. A search of his home revealed a soundproof room, jewelry trophies from his victims, and the murder weapon, a .223 caliber rifle. Hansen's arrest marked the end of his reign of terror, but the impact of his crimes continues to haunt Alaska. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unsuspecting places, and the importance of vigilance in bringing justice to victims and their families. In a chilling confession, Robert Hansen revealed that his motive for murder was rooted in a lifetime of rejection by women. According to a 1984 New York Times report, Hansen's deadly rampage was fueled by his own feelings of inadequacy and anger towards those who had spurned him. Hansen's plea guilty to 4 murders and admitted to killing a total of 17 women, as reported by the Anchorage Daily News. His crimes earned him a staggering sentence of 461 years plus life without parole, handed down in February 1984. In a rare move, Hansen agreed to cooperate with detectives and lead them to the bodies of his victims. However, only days of the remains were ever recovered, leaving the fate of the other 5 women a haunting mystery. Hansen's dark legacy was cemented in the annals of true crime history, and his story was later immortalized in the 2013 film Frozen Ground, starring Nicolas Cage as the determined Alaska State Trooper who brought Hansen to justice, and John Cusack as the serial killer himself. On August 21, 2014, Hansen's life of violence and rejection came to an end when he died of natural causes at the age of 75 while serving his sentence at the maximum security Spring Creek Correctional Center in Seward, Alaska. His death brought closure to some, but the impact of his crimes continues to resonate, a grim reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked anger and rejection. Number 6. Terry Nichols. In the heartland of America, a sinister plot was unfolding. Terry Nichols, a Michigan farmer, had teamed up with Timothy McVeigh, a like-minded individual, to carry out a devastating act of domestic terrorism. On April 19, 1995, their plan came to fruition, leaving a trail of destruction and loss of life that would shake the nation to its core. The Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, was the target of their attack. A massive bomb, constructed with materials and expertise provided by Nichols, ripped through the building, claiming the lives of many innocent people and injuring others. The bombing was the deadliest homegrown terror attack in United States' history, leaving a scar that would never fully heal. Nichols' journey to infamy began on a Michigan farm, where he was born and raised. After a brief stint in college, he returned to the family farm, married, and started a family. However, his life took a drastic turn when he joined the United States Army in 1988, where he met McVeigh, his future partner in crime. Their shared anti-government views and conservative ideology forged a bond that would lead to catastrophe. After his discharge from the Army, Nichols' life was marked by turmoil, including a divorce and a failed attempt to renounce his American citizenship. He remarried, this time to a mail-order bride from the Philippines, and started a new family. However, his friendship with McVeigh endured, and the two began to hatch a plan to take violent action against the government. In the fall of 1994, Nichols and McVeigh rented a storage locker in Kansas, where they constructed the massive bomb that would be used in the Oklahoma City attack. Their actions were fueled by a shared paranoia and hatred of the government, which they believed was a threat to their way of life. As the day of the attack approached, Nichols traveled to the Philippines to visit his wife, leaving behind letters for McVeigh that would later be revealed in court proceedings. The letters, dated November 1994, contained chilling instructions. "You're on your own. Go for it." Nichols returned to the United States in January 1995, and the countdown to the attack began. On April 19, the bomb detonated, leaving a scene of unimaginable destruction. Nichols was arrested, tried, and convicted of conspiracy and involuntary manslaughter in federal court, as well as 161 counts of murder in Oklahoma State Court. He was sentenced to life in prison, a fate he would meet at the Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado, the highest security prison in the United States. The Oklahoma City bombing was a wake-up call for America, a reminder that the threat of domestic terrorism was real and deadly. Terry Nichols' role in the attack serves as a testament to the dangers of extremism and the importance of vigilance in preventing such atrocities from occurring again. In a chilling turn of events, Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh assembled a deadly bomb in a rented Ryder truck at Geary Lake State Park in Kansas on April 18, 1995. The next morning, McVeigh drove the truck to the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and parked it in front of the building. With a flick of a lighter, the fuse was ignited, and McVeigh fled the scene in a second vehicle. At 9:02 a.m., the bomb exploded, reducing a third of the building to rubble and damaging over 300 neighboring structures. The devastating blast claimed the lives of over 150 innocent people, including 19 children, and left more than 500 others injured. The attack was the deadliest homegrown terror attack in United States history, leaving a scar that would never fully heal. The investigation that followed was intense, with authorities scouring the scene for clues. A breakthrough came when they discovered the identification number on one of the axles of the Ryder truck, leading them to the suspects. Nichols turned himself in to police in Harrington, Kansas, on April 21st, after learning that authorities were searching for him. He was charged with involvement in the attack less than 3 weeks later, on May 10. His brother James was also arrested as a material witness, but was later released without charge. The legal battle that ensued was lengthy and complex. Nichols was indicted on charges of murder and conspiracy in August 1995, and his federal trial began in November 1997. He was convicted of conspiracy and involuntary manslaughter, but spared the death penalty due to a deadlocked jury. In 1998, he was sentenced to life in prison. A state trial in Oklahoma followed in 2004, resulting in a conviction on 161 counts of murder. Again, the jury was deadlocked on the death penalty, and Nichols received a life sentence without parole. While serving his sentence at a maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, the FBI discovered explosives and bomb-making materials at Nichols's former home in 2005. The discovery was made possible by a tip from a fellow inmate, Gregory Scarpa Jr., who had befriended Nichols. In a surprising twist, it was revealed in 2011 that Nichols had been corresponding with Janie Coverdale, a woman who lost 2 grandchildren in the Oklahoma City bombing. In his letters, Nichols expressed remorse and claimed he had believed the bomb would target a monument or structure, not an occupied building. The Oklahoma City bombing serves as a poignant reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic terrorism. Terry Nichols's role in the attack is a chilling testament to the dangers of extremism and the importance of vigilance in preventing such atrocities from occurring again. Number 5. Ted Kazinski. On April 3, 1996, Theodore Ted Kazinski, the infamous Unabomber, was arrested for his reign of terror that spanned nearly 2 decades. But what drove this child prodigy, who entered Harvard at 16, to become one of the most notorious domestic terrorists in American history? Born in 1942, Kazinski's early life was marked by intense intellectual curiosity and social isolation. His parents, Wanda and Theodore Sr., encouraged his academic pursuits, but also pushed him to excel, potentially contributing to his later disillusionment with modern society. By 16, he was enrolled at Harvard, where he earned his undergraduate degree in mathematics. However, his social awkwardness and feelings of alienation intensified, setting the stage for his eventual descent into extremism. In 1978, Kazinski's first bomb exploded at a Chicago university, marking the beginning of a 17-year campaign of terror. He targeted universities, airlines, and other symbols of modern technology, killing 3 and injuring over 20 people. His bombs were meticulously crafted from scrap material, leaving no forensic evidence behind. The FBI dubbed him the Unabomber due to his targets: university and airline bombing. The KAM's Inker bombing in 1987 provided the first eyewitness account, describing a hooded figure in aviator sunglasses leaving a bag containing the bomb. The bomb shrapnel bore Kazinski's signature inscription, FC. In 1995, he sent the FBI a 35,000-word manifesto, which was published in several major newspapers. The writings revealed his anti-technology beliefs and sparked a debate about the roots of his radicalization. Linda Patrick, the wife of Kazinski's brother David, recognized the ideas in the manifesto and convinced her husband to turn his brother in. On April 3, 1996, the FBI arrested Kazinski at his cabin in Montana. He pleaded guilty in 1998 and is currently serving a life sentence in a Colorado prison. The Unabomber's story raises questions about the intersection of genius and destruction and the consequences of unchecked anger and disillusionment. His legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of addressing social isolation and the need for a more compassionate society. Number 4. Eric Rudolph. In the summer of 1996, the world converged on Atlanta for the Olympic Games, but the joy and celebration were shattered by a series of deadly bombings. Eric Robert Rudolph, a 29-year-old extremist, targeted the Olympics, a gay club, and abortion clinics, leaving a trail of destruction and death. On July 27, 1996, a bomb exploded at Centennial Olympic Park, killing 2 and injuring over 100 people. Security guard Richard Jewell, who had earlier struggled with rowdy college kids, discovered an abandoned backpack and alerted authorities. As they cleared the area, the bomb detonated, sending shrapnel flying and injuring Jewell and many others. The bombing spree continued with attacks on a lesbian nightclub in Atlanta and abortion clinics in Atlanta and Birmingham, Alabama. Rudolph's reign of terror lasted for years, leaving a community on edge and a nation in shock. Rudolph's motivations were rooted in his anti-abortion and anti-gay beliefs, which he felt justified his violent act. However, his actions only brought harm and suffering to innocent people. After a 5-year manhunt, Rudolph was finally captured in Murphy, North Carolina. In 2003, he was sentenced to 4 life terms for his crimes, including the Olympic Park bombing that killed Alice Hawthorne and Mili Uzunyol. John Hawthorne, whose wife Alice was killed in the Centennial Olympic Park bombing, and their daughter, spoke out after Rudolph's sentencing in 2005. Rudolph received 4 life sentences for his crimes, which included the murder of an off-duty police officer and the maiming of numerous others. Rudolph's bombs were designed to inflict maximum harm, using nails and shrapnel to tear through flesh and bone. His final bombing at New Woman All-Women Healthcare in Birmingham killed security guard Robert Sandy Sanderson and left nurse Emily Lyons with chronic injuries and pain. However, it was Rudolph's attempt to detonate a secondary bomb at the scene that ultimately led to his downfall. A University of Alabama student, Jermaine Hughes, noticed Rudolph's suspicious behavior and alerted authorities, providing a crucial description of the bomber. Another witness, Jeff Tickall, followed Rudolph and recorded his license plate number, leading to his identification and eventual capture. Rudolph's arrest in 2003 marked the end of a 5-year manhunt, during which he was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. His capture was a testament to the determination and bravery of law enforcement and the public, who refused to let Rudolph's reign of terror go unchecked. Today, Rudolph remains imprisoned at the Florence Supermax Federal Prison in Colorado. His actions a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of extremism and hatred. His legacy serves as a warning, a reminder of the importance of unity and resilience in the face of violence and terror. Number 3. Ramsey YF. On February 26, 1993, a devastating bombing occurred at the World Trade Center in New York City. The perpetrator's sinister plan was to bring down the tallest tower onto its twin, releasing a deadly cloud of cyanide gas in the process. If the attack had unfolded as intended, the consequences would have been catastrophic, resulting in the loss of tens of thousands of lives. Fortunately, the tower did not collapse onto its twin, and the cyanide gas was consumed by the intense heat of the explosion, preventing a far more devastating outcome. While the attack still resulted in the tragic loss of 6 lives, it was a significantly less severe outcome than what could have been. The implications of Ramsey YF's actions extend not only to past events, but also to potential future threats. Understanding YF's identity and connections is crucial, as his associates may still pose a significant danger to the United States. Notably, a compelling argument suggests that Ramsey YF is an agent of Iraqi intelligence, and his bombing plots were orchestrated as Saddam Hussein's retaliation for the Gulf War. This revelation highlights the significance of exploring YF's ties and motivations, as it may uncover a broader web of threats to national security. Ramsey YF was prosecuted in the United States' District Court for the Southern District of New York alongside 2 accomplices, and was found guilty of masterminding the Bojinka plot. He received 2 life sentences, plus 240 years for his role in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the Bojinka plot. Notably, Yusef's maternal uncle, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, a senior al-Qaeda operative, allegedly collaborated with him on the Bojinka plot. Mohammed is also accused of orchestrating the September 11th attacks in 2001. Yusef is currently serving his life sentences at ADX Florence in Colorado. Prior to his transfer in late 2021, he was housed in a cell block known as Bombers Row, alongside notable inmates Terry Nichols, Eric Rudolph, and Ted Kazinski. In a notable development, Yusef claimed to have converted to Christianity in 2007, stating that he had found Jesus, or is that another plot? Number 2. Michael Swango. Michael Swango, a former medical student, paramedic, and physician, is a convicted serial killer who exploited his professional positions to poison numerous colleagues and patients. He is currently serving 3 consecutive life sentences at the ADX Florence Supermax Federal Prison in Florence, Colorado, the only facility of its kind in the country. Michael Swango's alleged victim count is staggering, with estimates ranging from 35 to 60 or more, according to James B. Stewart's 1999 book, Blind Eye. While Swango has confessed to 4 murders, investigators believe his true tally is much higher. Convicted of poisoning victims in Ohio and New York hospitals, he is also suspected of similar crimes in Zimbabwe. Additionally, he experimented with poisoning food served to colleagues and others. His earliest confessed killing, revealed in a 2000 Franklin County Court of Common Pleas appearance, was that of 19-year-old Cynthia McGee, a gymnast who died in 1984 at Ohio State University Medical Center, where Swango was an intern at the time. During his time at Southern Illinois University, Michael Swango exhibited concerning behavior. Despite being a brilliant student, he prioritized working as an ambulance attendant over focusing on his studies. He showed a peculiar fascination with dying patients, and a disproportionate number of his assigned patients experienced life-threatening emergencies, with at least 5 fatalities. Initially, this went unnoticed, but his lax approach to studies eventually caught up with him. Just a month before graduation, it was discovered that he had falsified checkups during his OB and GYN rotation. Although some colleagues had suspected this behavior as early as his 2nd year, this was the first time he was caught. Swango faced potential expulsion, but was granted a second chance when one committee member voted in his favor. This was possible because a unanimous vote was required for dismissal at the time. Earlier, concerns about Swango's competence as a medical practitioner had been raised by several students and faculty members. Ultimately, the school allowed him to graduate a year after his peers, contingent on repeating the OB and GYN rotation and completing additional assignments in other specialties. In July 1984, Michael Swango returned to Quincy and began working as an emergency medical technician with the Adams County Ambulance Corps, despite having been previously terminated from an ambulance service in Springfield for recklessly making a heart patient drive to the hospital. Shortly after his arrival, paramedics on staff started noticing a disturbing trend. Whenever Swango prepared coffee or brought food, several colleagues would suddenly fall violently ill with no apparent explanation. In October 1984, the Quincy Police Department arrested Swango after discovering arsenic and other poisons in his possession. He was subsequently convicted of aggravated battery for poisoning his co-workers on August 23, 1985, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. In 1991, Michael Swango legally changed his name to Daniel J. Adams and attempted to secure a residency program at Ohio Valley Medical Center in Wheeling, West Virginia, using forged documents to conceal his criminal past. He repeated this deception in July 1992, landing a job at Sanford USD Medical Center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Swango fabricated a fake fact sheet from the Illinois Department of Corrections, downplaying his criminal record to a misdemeanor conviction for a workplace altercation, rather than the 5-year felony poisoning sentence he actually served. He also forged a letter from Virginia Governor Gerald L. Baliles, falsely claiming restoration of his civil rights, including voting and jury duty, based on fictitious reports of good behavior. By falsifying these documents, Swango aimed to obscure his violent felony conviction, which would have prevented him from obtaining a medical license in most states due to unprofessional conduct. By November 1994, when a thorough background check finally revealed who he truly was, Swango had fled to Zimbabwe, where he secured a job at Manene Lutheran Mission Hospital using forged documents. However, his patients began dying under mysterious circumstances, prompting Dr. Christopher Zishiri, the medical director, to suspend him due to suspicions. Although autopsies were inadequate, Swango hired lawyer David Coulthart to reinstatement and appealed to Mpilo Hospital in Bulawayo to allow him to continue working voluntarily. But Abdallah Mesbah, a surgical resident, opposed this, having previously noticed Swango snooping around the wards and ICU, suspecting him of causing sudden patient deaths, though without concrete evidence. Meanwhile, Swango rented a room from a widowed woman in Bulawayo who fell violently ill after a meal, prompting a local surgeon, Michael Cotton, to suspect arsenic poisoning. Hair samples sent to Pretoria, South Africa, confirmed toxic arsenic levels. The Zimbabwe Republic Police CID, through Interpol, shared the lab reports with the FBI, who interviewed Cotton and a pathologist in Bulawayo. As authorities closed in, Swango fled to Zambia and then Namibia, where he found temporary medical work. He was charged in absentia with poisoning. In March 1997, he applied for a job at the Royal Hospital in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, using a false resume. In 1997, Tom Valeri, chief investigator for the VA's Office of Inspector General, consulted with forensic psychiatrist Charlene Thomason to profile Swango. Valeri discussed the case with Richard Thomason, and Swango was arrested in June 1997 for defrauding the government. He pleaded guilty in March 1990 and was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. Despite suspicions of serial murder, prosecutors faced challenges proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. They amassed evidence, including exhuming bodies and finding poisonous chemicals, and charged Swango with 3 counts of murder and other crimes in July 2000. Facing the death penalty in Zimbabwe, Swango accepted a life sentence without parole in exchange for cooperation. He pleaded guilty to 3 murder counts, wire fraud and mail fraud, and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms at ADX Florence. Swango rarely changed his murder methods. With non-patients, such as his co-workers at the emergency medical service, he used poisons, usually arsenic, slipping them into foods and beverages. With patients, he sometimes used poisons as well, but usually he administered an overdose of whichever drug the patient had been prescribed, or wrote unnecessary prescriptions for dangerous drugs. Something was definitely wrong with this guy, really. Imagine saying there are far worse people than him. Number 1. Thomas Silverstein, perhaps the most notorious prisoner in the United States' history. Thomas Silverstein entered the federal prison system in 1975 after he was convicted of 3 bank robberies that he pulled with his father and his uncle. He was only 19 years old, and who knows how long he has been into crime. But the robbery is only the tiny tip of the iceberg, because just 3 years later, he was convicted of murdering an inmate who had run afoul of the Aryan Brotherhood, the most feared white gang in prison. Silverstein was identified as a member of the AB, convicted, and sent to the federal prison in Marion, Illinois, the harshest in the country at the time. A judge later overturned this conviction after ruling that the witnesses against Silverstein, which included a prison guard, were not believable. Apparently, the judge had spoken too soon because before he could be ruled not guilty for the first murder, Silverstein had been convicted of a second prison murder, this time the strangulation of a black prison gang member. Another murder soon followed. It involved Raymond Cadillac Smith, the national leader of a black prison gang who had sworn to avenge his fellow gang member's death. Prison records show that Smith made several attempts to murder Silverstein, yet prison officials kept the 2 men in cells close to each other. Silverstein and another inmate, Clay Fountain, broke out of an exercise area and caught Smith as he was leaving a shower area. They stabbed him 67 times and then dragged his body up and down the prison tier so that other prisoners, still locked in their cells, could see the bloody corpse. The confidence he had in committing these heinous crimes would make watching horror movies feel like a playdate. Officer Merle Eugene Klutz was assigned to help bring order to the cell block where Silverstein and Fountain were housed. Silverstein claims Klutz immediately began harassing him, but an investigation by the Federal Bureau of Prisons and FBI would later clear Klutz of any wrongdoing. Silverstein would claim those two probes were whitewashes. Regardless, Silverstein became obsessed with Klutz and spent months plotting his murder. On October 22, 1983, with the help of other inmates, Silverstein slipped off his handcuffs while he was being led to a shower. Brandishing a homemade shank knife, Silverstein broke free from the two guards escorting him and attacked Klutz, who was not carrying any weapons. An autopsy later showed Klutz had been stabbed 40 times. Thomas Silverstein has been locked under the tightest conditions in the Federal Bureau of Prisons in total isolation since he murdered a correctional officer in 1983. The lights are kept on 24 hours a day in his cell. At first, the BOP stripped him to his boxer shorts and did not let him have anything in his cell. While security cameras were being installed, two guards sat outside his cell and watched him round the clock. He was kept under these conditions for 6 months. The BOP then began giving Silverstein additional privileges, such as a television set and drawing materials. Part of the reason was because the BOP realized that it is nearly impossible to control an inmate unless you have something to take away from him as punishment. Silverstein spends much of his day drawing. He is entirely self-taught. The BOP has refused to allow him to enter his work in prison-sponsored art shows at Leavenworth, where convicts can sell their work to the public. It does not want Silverstein to profit from his notoriety. The Silverstein Suite, built just for him, is located at the end of the Special Housing Unit, a building isolated from the main prison. Silverstein was moved here in 1989 from his basement dungeon, which is described in the hothouse. The SHU is a prison inside a prison and is commonly called the Hole. It's where convicts are sent for punishment. Silverstein is kept in his cell 23 hours per day. At certain times, an electronic door is opened for 1 hour so he can step into the outside recreation area or into an indoor recreation cage. He is not allowed into the hallway that is used by officers when they need to microwave his meals or check on him face to face. There is a visiting room attached to the indoor recreation cage, but since the Bureau of Prisons doesn't allow him visitors, it was rather useless. The 3 rooms, his cell, and the 2 recreation cages are his entire world. Because he is under constant surveillance, the only time that he sees other humans is when food is brought to his cell. He has been kept under no human contact conditions since 1983. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.